In the first round of discussion, we discuss how important the role of government is, and it is very important indeed. But it would be meaningless in our transformation towards greener economy if there is no robust and rigorous engagement from the private sector as the primary engine of our economy. The economic opportunity and potential from green economy is actually quite enormous. Just earlier this year, Standard Chartered Bank reported that green economy represents a $50 trillion, that's $50 trillion opportunity for investors. And the World Resources Institute also reported that green economy can potentially create as many as 18 million new jobs. But we all know that despite this promising potential, there are many challenges and hiccups in our transformation towards low carbon economy, especially in the short term. For example, we just recently witnessed a coal crisis, a coal shortage hitting many major economies, including China, which reflects to a certain extent how our global economy is still dependent on fossil fuels. So to that end, it is essential for us to directly listen to the private sector on how they plan to navigate the short-term challenges in the transitioning to greener economy, how they seek to tap into the vast opportunity coming from low carbon economy, and most importantly, how they think us as the government, as policymakers, can better support their journey to decarbonize their business. And once again, we are very lucky because now we are joined by outstanding and remarkable panelists who happen to be the global business leaders who managed to shepherd their business to be more environmentally conscious. First, we have Pak Karyanto Wibowo, the head of EuroChem Sustainable Development Working Group. We also have Ibu Lucia Karina, the Director for Public Affairs of Communication and Sustainability of Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners Indonesia. And last but not least, we have Mr. Holger Appler, the CFO and acting CEO of PT Siemens Indonesia. Now, let's welcome the first panelist in the second round of discussion, Pak Karyanto Wibowo. Aside from serving as the head of the EuroChem Sustainable Development Working Group, Pak Wibowo has 15 years of experience, including serving as the Director of Sustainable Development of Danone Indonesia. He holds a bachelor's and master's degree in mechanical engineering from Gadjah Mada University, and he also holds a business degree in business from University of Salford. Pak Karyanto, terima kasih for joining us. Now the screen is yours.
Baik, terima kasih. Selamat siang. Good morning, everyone. So thank you for the opportunity to share the private sector's perspective in regard to the climate change and what private sector can do to support government ambitions to address the climate change. So I have several slides. If you don't mind, anyone can help to project my slides. Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned before, I would like to share the role of private sectors in mitigating and also adapting the climate change, especially in Indonesia. But before that, I would like to introduce EuroChem because I'm here representing EuroChem. EuroChem is, a policy advocacy platform. It was established in 2004. Where it was established, the establishment was in the EOA. It was witnessed by the EU delegations and also the 17 European ambassadors. The objective of EuroChem is really to, to really unify the single voice of of the European-based organizations, and then to do really the collective action in enhancing the competitiveness and ease of the doing business in Indonesia. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is basically the priority of Eurogems. Definitely, of course, we have many agenda on the investment and also the business climate through the continuous advocacy and also the supporting the ongoing FTA and CEPA negotiations. At the same time, also we are supporting the trade, which is import and export and logistics in Indonesia. And at the same time also, this is quite important as well, is how we drive the sustainability initiative, sustainability topic, bringing the best practice from the European, through the European Green Deal, and also the future of sustainable business to Indonesia. So I will start my topic, if we go to the next slide, with the recent event, which is the COP. The COP26, I think, yeah, it was happened in just a few weeks ago. I think the COP26 really pushed the countries and also the business to do much more to curb the climate warming carbon emissions. Of course, the pressure will increasingly be imposed on the investment and industry to bring emissions associated with their business in check. And then the Glasgow Pact also delivered the breakthrough on rules for governing carbon markets and also took aim at fossil fuel subsidy. I believe most of us really exposed on what are really the commitment made in the COP26. And then if we go to the next slide, basically, of course, I take from the GlobeScan research how actually the expectation of the public related to the climate change, who actually the parties to really responsible for the addressing the climate change. But of course, here people believe that governments, private sector, or company in international bodies bear the most responsibility to address the climate change. This is really a kind of of course, the eye-opener for us as well as the private sector, that basically the expectation of the public to us as a company, as an organization is quite significant. So if we go to the next slide, yeah, and of course, this is something which is becoming very relevant for us as a private sector. Why? Because yeah, from the data, from the numbers, we see that the globally we emit about 50 billion tons of greenhouse gases every year. And then you see from the split, of course, emission came from many sectors, from the energy and from agriculture and forestry, land use, from the waste, from the industry activity. So it is very clear from this breakdown that the range of the sector and process contribute to the global emission is vary. So means there is no really simple solutions to tackle this climate change, and really need the collaborative actions, including the private and also the public sectors. So if we go to the next slide, so basically this is just to give you a simple, simple way to illustrate what kind of collaboration that we can do. So simply from the business and the policy making, what really we can do to find the the area where we really able to work together to reduce or to cap the temperature below 2 or 1.5%, 1.5 degree. So what does it mean here? From the business, of course, how to really mobilize the business to set the ambitious target, to implement that and also achieve the impact. At the same time, also we need to accelerate through the partnership, through the investor, of course, city, government, and also the civil society. At the same time, also we need to work together with the government to create, kind of ambitious. At the same time, also enabling policy for business that to deliver the climate actions. So if we go to the next slide, and of course, I'm not going to elaborate in more detail, but this is from the business perspective, what we as a business should respond to deliver, our commitment. I think first thing first, we need to set the ambitions, the climate ambitions. There are several examples already where the business really set the ambition to be a zero net by a certain period of time. Can be 2050 or it can be earlier. And then the second one, once we establish the ambitions, then we need to start, doing actions. Establishing ambition is not enough, but what is our actions to reach our ambition? What are the milestones? What are the resources that we put, etc. and so forth. And then, of course, we need to advocacy. Advocacy means dialogue, a discussion, dialogue with the government to create enabling conditions, and also to have a discussion with the peers, with the other industry, with the association, to bring, the topic. And then also the accountability. We should be able as a business to be more transparent, to be measured, and also to really accountable on what we put in our ambition. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to give you also another data that basically most of the industry are really ready from the research of the GlobeScan. You see that the industry or the private sector or the CEO, they put the climate change as really at the top of the agenda, and also they put also kind of actions to address the climate change topic. So then the next slide, please. So because I'm from the EuroChem, I just want to share you that basically I think the ambassador also share about the EU Green Deal. At the same time, also basically there are several movements already on the climate change. For example, like in EU launched the climate pact, really is part of the EU Green Deal and helping also EU to meet the goal to be the first climate natural continent by 2050, and then really driving the movement among the organizations, among the cities, countries to really support the EU Green Deal. And then what is happening to the private sector? So basically now it is really part of the movement. There are so many private sectors, company pledge, and also support to be part of this kind of movement. It's quite massive. There are many coalitions, thousands of company pledge to be zero net. Can be zero net, as I mentioned before, 2050, or can be earlier, or even certain brand to be zero net by 2030, which is already some brand already make it happen, even earlier, and then also a commitment to be 100% renewable energy by 2030 or earlier. So this is really a commitment, but of course, if you go to the next slide, I mean, the commitment has to be measured. So I take from the CDP. This is the organization where they collect the data from the company who transparently pledge and also publish the commitment. There are several companies, I think thousands of companies already registered to the CDP to pledge their commitment to reach a zero net carbon emission. So if we go to the next slide, if I try to drill down, I take an example on the company where I work. Of course, when we do the pledge, when we share the transparency, we need also to put kind of a roadmap, what we need to do to achieve the zero net by 2050. We have kind of a graph where potentially there will be kind of a scenario. What is the scenario if the business as usual? What is the scenario if we do the interventions? Where are we going to be peak, and then in which or when we are going to reduce and then towards to zero net in 2050. Okay, so this is an example of the company. So now I go to Indonesia. Yeah, of course, for us, as discussed before, we pledge, Indonesia pledge to COP26, where we really want to address the climate change. There is already kind of a commitment to be zero net countries by 2060. And then our president has really said that even though we are on the COVID pandemic, but the agenda on SDG, agenda on the green economy has to continue. I think this is something where we should be proud as Indonesia, and then we need to really accelerate. But of course, there is some challenges. I go to the next slide. So basically, this is quite interesting data. So of course, in order to support government ambition, Indonesia government ambition, everybody, every stakeholders need to be on board, including also the private sector. But from the research seems that still, the involvement of the private sectors needs to be further improved, because I think only 22%, the business currently factoring climate change as part of the strategic risk. So therefore, still, the significant percentage where the company should really integrate the climate change as part of the agenda. And then also, if we go to the next slide as well, so this is also another data where still climate change is not really in the top of mind of the most of the Indonesian CEO comparing to other countries. So still there are some homework that we need to do. So if we go to the next slide, so basically, yeah, of course, we as a EuroCham, as I mentioned before, we really want to be part also to contribute to Indonesia, working with many different stakeholders, with the governments. EuroCham is really committed to support Indonesia in terms of the trade opportunity and also the sustainable development goal, because we believe that our European business experience and view should be able to contribute in promoting sustainability for Indonesia long-term growth and progress. And then the next slide, basically, I just want to highlight here basically several challenges and also basically expectation from us as a business to the government. There are several things. First, of course, we really expect the government to implement the NEP, because this is something that's going to be working hand in hand with the industry as well. And then also how to be able to strengthen the resilience in the value chains. And then promoting the blended finance. I think the ADP already mentions about the financing. We need to promote this kind of financing model. And then the circularity business model. This is very important. Now there are so many movement on circular economy. This is also crucial to address the climate change. And then comprehensive risk assessment. Data is very important. Sometimes it's difficult for us to really find the reliable data where we can use as a reference. And then at the same time also how government able to really promote the public-private partnership. And then the next one will be my last slide. So basically this is a kind of how to say our invitation and also recommendations to, of course, to the government, at the same time also to the business society in Indonesia, what we can do to really support and working together to build the resilience to minimize the climate impact. First, of course, we need to set the ambitions. As I mentioned before, we need to set the ambition, the business strategy related to the climate change. The second one is we need to take an actions. We need to start really thinking on the innovation mindset. I know it's really challenging to reach the zero net carbon. There are so many obstacles, but we need to think on innovations. And then the advocacy. Advocacy means really working together with our peers, with our association, with the government, to have kind of a collective calls to really establish the conducive policy for the growing of the economic opportunity in a more sustainable way. And then the last one is more the accountability. How to ensure that we are transparent, we are able to be verified, and also we really responsible to deliver what we put in our commitment. So I think this is more or less, the private sector's perspective with regard to the green economy and also addressing the climate change in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you. Terima kasih banyak Pak Karyanto Wibowo. Now we shall proceed to our second panelist, Ibu Lucia Karina. Ms. Lucia Karina is the Director for Public Affairs, Communication, and Sustainability at Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners Indonesia. She has over 22 years of experience in technical engineering, marketing, business development, sustainability, and corporate affairs. And now she also serves in various organizations, including Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, Employers Association of Indonesia, and Food and Beverages Association, just to name a few. Terima kasih, Ibu Lucia. Without further ado, now I give you the screen.
Thank you so much. Boleh dibantu share screen-nya? Selamat pagi Bapak Ibu, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semuanya, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. First of all, I would like to introduce my company. Next slide, please. So we are part of the world's largest Coca-Cola bottler with 33,000 employees and footprint covering more than 25 countries. We invest, employees, manufacture, and distribute locally, maintaining a strong commitment to our communities. Next slide, please. Because I saw a lot of Indonesians, please allow me to continue with bahasa. Di sini saya mau menyampaikan bahwa kami menjalankan bisnis kami dengan tujuan untuk memberikan kesegaran bagi jutaan konsumen di seluruh Nusantara dan menciptakan dampak positif dan besar. Ini nanti akan ada hubungannya dengan climate change. Next slide, Mbak, please. Jadi setiap strategi yang ada di dalam Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners, baik yang di Indonesia maupun di seluruh grup Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners, itu selalu selaras dengan tujuan keberlanjutan yang sudah digarisbawahi oleh para pemegang saham di Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners. Jadi semua aktivitas, semua strategi bisnis itu harus betul-betul merupakan suatu perwujudan dari comprehensive sustainability efforts yang dituangkan dalam strategi kerja bagi setiap lini bisnis di dalam grup kami. Di sisi IP sendiri, kami mempunyai rencana aksi keberlanjutan yang disebut This is Forward. Maksudnya adalah supaya kita selalu melihat ke depan, melihat legacy apa saja yang akan kita tinggalkan bagi generasi penerus kita. Next, please. Nah, ini adalah pilar yang sudah ada di This is Forward, dan kami sangat percaya bahwa kegiatan bisnis yang melakukan langsung direct approach kepada keberlanjutan lingkungan itu akan memberikan nilai tambahan bukan hanya buat bisnis tetapi juga kepada masyarakat secara umum. Dan tentunya juga terkait dengan keterlibatan para pemangku jabatan dalam kegiatan bisnis kami, baik itu pelanggan, kemudian juga konsumen, kemudian juga pemerintah, investor, dan NGOs. Next slide, please. Nah, ini adalah salah satu yang tadi saya sebutkan ya, This is Forward. Jadi melalui rencana aksi ini, kami mengambil beberapa tindakan di area yang menurut kami memberikan dampak terbesar pada planet. Dan di setiap bidang-bidang tersebut, kami telah membuat sejumlah komitmen yang selaras dengan target yang mendasari SDGs dari United Nations, dan komitmen ini untuk memberikan arahan yang jelas bagi semua karyawan yang berada dalam lingkungan Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners, baik yang di global maupun yang di Indonesia. Next. Ini merupakan kami memahami bahwa salah satu tantangan lingkungan yang paling mendesak yang tengah kita rasakan di seluruh dunia adalah perubahan iklim. Karena itu kami berkomitmen untuk menjalankan peran kami secara global dalam mengatasi krisis iklim dengan mengurangi emisi karbon di seluruh rantai nilai pasok kami. Jadi mulai dari bahan baku yang kami beli hingga sampai distribusi kepada konsumennya. Dan kami juga berusaha membuat semacam rencana jangka pendek dan rencana jangka panjang dalam mengadres isu-isu ini. Ini juga sejalan tentunya dengan tujuan pembangunan yang berkelanjutan yang sudah ditetapkan oleh pemerintah Indonesia pada perjanjian Paris. Dan kami sangat berharap apapun yang kami lakukan di Indonesia ini bisa mendukung komitmen pemerintah Indonesia untuk mencapai target penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca sebesar 29% atau setara dengan 314 juta ton karbon dioksida pada tahun 2030. Next, Mbak. Next. Nah, pada tahun 2020, sebetulnya kami sudah mencapai sekitar 56% dari energi yang kami pakai itu berasal dari renewable energy yang low carbon. Nah, salah satu yang alternatif yang kami lakukan ada di selanjutnya, di next slide selanjutnya. Next. Ini adalah penggunaan kulkas-kulkas yang betul-betul rendah karbon ya. Jadi kami melakukan riset dengan beberapa supplier vendor kami untuk kulkas, dan dari hasil riset tersebut kami berhasil menurunkan emisi karbon pada kulkas-kulkas yang saat ini sekarang berada di outlet-outlet yang melayani produk Coca-Cola. Dan hal yang lain yang juga kami lakukan itu adalah mengubah semua sistem atau peralatan yang masih menggunakan fosil karbon, dan kami melihat apakah dia bisa berubah menjadi LPG ataupun juga dengan LNG. Nah, itu kami juga lakukan perubahan tersebut, termasuk juga mengubah sistem lighting di seluruh operation kami. Nah, satu hal juga yang sudah kami lakukan sejak beberapa tahun terakhir ini adalah membuat sistem automation untuk mesin-mesin yang beroperasi secara langsung, dan itu berdasarkan sensor. Jadi kalau misalkan mesin itu tidak berfungsi, tidak berjalan, atau mungkin tidak ada manusia di dalamnya, maka mesin itu akan berhenti dengan sendirinya. Dan dia baru bisa aktif kembali apabila ada sensor yang menyala atau mengirimkan sinyal kepada mesin tersebut. Nah, alhamdulillah dengan adanya sistem automation ini, kami juga bisa mereduksi lumayan cukup banyak energi yang kami konsumsi. Next slide, Mbak. Nah, di tahun 2019, sebagai salah satu komitmen kami untuk mencapai netral carbon, salah satu investasi terbesar yang sudah kami lakukan itu adalah pemasangan solar roof panels di pabrik terbesar kami yang berlokasi di Cikarang Barat. Dan ini merupakan atap panel surya terbesar yang dipasang di single building manufacturing facility di kawasan Asia Tenggara dan juga di Asia Pasifik. Dengan luasan sekitar 72.000 meter persegi, sistem ini menghasilkan hampir 10 juta kilowatt hour per tahun, dan ini bisa menggantikan sekitar 13% dari total kebutuhan listrik yang kami pakai, yang kami beli dari PLN. Sistem ini juga memungkinkan kami berkontribusi untuk mengurangi sekitar 8,9 juta kilogram emisi karbon setiap tahun. Kami tidak berhenti di sini saja. Saat ini kami juga sedang di next slide-nya, Mbak. Saat ini kami juga sedang dalam proses pemasangan panel surya kedua di pabrik Pasuruan. Dan di samping itu, kebetulan kami juga sedang melakukan feasibility study untuk pabrik di Semarang dan juga pabrik kedua kami di Bekasi. Mudah-mudahan apa yang kami akan coba capai, baik di pabrik Pasuruan, Semarang, dan Bekasi, ini juga bisa mengikuti apa yang sudah kami install di pabrik pertama di Cikarang. Dan next slide. Dan yang ingin saya sampaikan pada kesempatan kali ini, untuk membuat perubahan di Indonesia itu bukan hal yang mudah. Tantangannya lumayan banyak, dan tantangan yang ada ini rata-rata berasal dari external challenges. Jadi, dan ini pun di luar kendali kami ya, tapi karena upaya kami dan kemauan kami yang luar biasa, termasuk juga komitmen dari perusahaan yang sangat ingin mengurangi carbon emission yang kami hasilkan, sehingga kami juga berupaya keras supaya ini bisa kami mitigate. Tantangan pertama di Indonesia itu adalah regulasi yang ada di Indonesia sendiri itu belum clear dalam mendukung perubahan, tindakan-tindakan untuk melakukan perubahan dalam rangka mencegah perubahan iklim yang sangat signifikan. Kemudian yang kedua, adanya keterbatasan supply dari material untuk solar panel itu sendiri juga masih sangat-sangat terbatas. Dan kalaupun ada, mereka belum bisa mengikuti teknologi terkini di dunia. Padahal teknologi terkini ini juga ada hubungannya dengan berapa besar kapasitas yang bisa kita dapat, yang bisa mengurangi konsumsi dari pemakaian fosil energi. Di samping itu juga karena keterbatasan yang ada tersebut, sehingga membuat investasi yang dilakukan oleh industri itu menjadi investasi yang cukup mahal dengan payback period-nya yang cukup panjang. Sehingga ini juga membuat investor itu berpikir untuk melakukan investasi. Belum lagi hal yang lain adalah birokrasi. Kalau tadi saya bicara regulasi, itu berarti mulai dari kita tidak punya yang namanya footprint energi. Kemudian yang kedua, tidak ada regulasi yang mendukung dengan betul-betul mendukung ya secara komprehensif dan holistik mendukung upaya untuk pengurangan emisi karbon dan upaya untuk melakukan tindakan-tindakan pengurangan emisi karbon. Yang lain adalah didukung dengan birokrasi yang cukup panjang dan timpang tindih antara masing-masing KL atau masing-masing pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah. Ini kami alami sendiri, baru-baru saja di pabrik Pasuruan, adanya proses panjang dari perizinan, sehingga kami terpaksa harus melakukan advokasi ke beberapa pihak supaya perizinan itu bisa keluar. Dan saya masih ingat pada saat kami memasang di pabrik pabrik Bekasi, itu juga it takes long time, almost 1 year only to get the permit. Itu salah satu yang lain, dan saya sangat berharap kalau misalkan pemerintah memang betul-betul mau maju ke dalam renewable energy effort, maka yang pertama kali harus dilakukan itu adalah membuat blueprint atau roadmap terhadap energi itu sendiri. Kita mau kemana dan apa saja peran dari masing-masing stakeholder tersebut. Apakah kita perlu melakukan disinsentif bagi industri atau sebaliknya kita melakukan positive incentive. Jadi bagi industri-industri yang melakukan upaya renewable energy, mereka mendapat either fiscal incentive ataupun non-fiscal incentive, sehingga ketakutan mereka untuk proses birokrasi, kemudian panjangnya payback period, dan hal-hal yang lain yang membuat mereka ragu-ragu melangkah ke sana, itu bisa terbayarkan dengan adanya dukungan dari pemerintah. Nah, saya sendiri sampai sekarang belum melihat arah ke sana ya, tapi di perusahaan, karena kebetulan saya yang bertanggung jawab terhadap hal upaya-upaya ini di perusahaan kami, saya selalu menyatakan bahwa mari kita letakkan dulu tantangan-tantangan ini. Yang penting sekarang kita membangun dan meninggalkan legacy buat generasi penerus kita, sekaligus juga sebagai wujud tanggung jawab kita kepada lingkungan dan masyarakat yang tempat kita beroperasi. Nah, ini mungkin salah satu juga yang saya bisa ajak para industri yang lain untuk mulai berpikir terhadap hal tersebut. Di samping itu yang lain lagi adalah bagaimana karena kami menggunakan sistem on-grid, sehingga itu masih ada korelasi dengan PLN. Ini juga bagaimana kita bisa menjalin hubungan dengan PLN supaya effort ini bisa berjalan secara full speed. Bukan seperti sekarang terpaksa harus melakukan advokasi sedemikian rupa hingga keluarlah izin dan juga kesepakatan tentang tarif. Next, Mbak. Nah, di luar dari next slide lagi. Di luar dari upaya kami melalui solar panel, kami juga melihat bahwa salah satu faktor juga yang bisa mengurangi climate change itu adalah menggunakan recycling PET bottle. Kenapa ini bisa mengurangi mereduksi karbon yang ada di dunia? Karena setelah melalui investigasi dan juga melalui analisa panjang, kami menyadari bahwa menggunakan botol kaca itu justru meningkatkan karbon emisi. Tapi di satu sisi, kalau misalkan botol plastik itu juga tidak dikelola kembali, maka ada PR yang lain, yaitu PR pada sampah-sampah botol plastik. Nah, dengan demikian, kami mencoba mencari solusi buat permasalahan ini, dan akhirnya kami menetapkan bahwa kami mulai tahun depan itu akan menggunakan sebagian besar dari botol kami itu berasal dari recycling PET botol. Untuk mencapai hal tersebut, karena di Indonesia juga belum ada yang betul-betul bisa 100% fruit grade, dan sekarang memang Mas Karyanto tahu persis itu, kita ada trial dan error juga karena ada pabrik selain yang kami akan dirikan ini. Food grade RPET ini mudah-mudahan bisa menggantikan peran dari botol kaca tersebut. Jadi ada dua hal yang bisa kita capai. Yang pertama adalah mengurangi fossil carbon. Kemudian the other things also we can save our environment by collecting the PET bottle from the environment or from the society. Tentunya ini juga banyak tantangannya ya, karena infrastruktur persampahan di Indonesia sebagaimana kita ketahui bersama juga masih kurang bagus, dan masih banyak yang harus kita lakukan untuk membuat yang namanya proyek daur ulang ini bisa hidup. Demikian pula juga bagaimana kita meyakinkan bahwa siklus ekonomi itu bisa berjalan. Di next slide-nya, saya akan menceritakan salah satu upaya yang kami lakukan untuk membuat kegiatan ini bisa berjalan, yaitu dengan membuat satu foundation. Di foundation ini kami mengajarkan kepada para pemulung itu, dan ini tidak hanya satu tempat, itu akan menyebar di seluruh Indonesia, bagaimana pemulung itu bisa meningkatkan values dari sampah plastik, satu. Kemudian yang kedua, juga meningkatkan taraf hidup mereka yang selama ini tidak dimanusiakan. Jadi kami mencoba juga dalam proyek ini mengangkat taraf hidup mereka dan membuat mereka juga punya kembali yang namanya human rights. Dan mudah-mudahan ini nantinya bisa membantu masyarakat Indonesia, khususnya para pemulung, untuk mereka bisa menjadi manusia. Di satu sisi kami juga akan mengurangi sampah-sampah botol plastik yang ada di Indonesia, plus upaya ini juga bisa mengurangi peningkatan dari karbon fosil yang
Ibu
ada
Sia,
di
mohon
Indonesia.
maaf waktunya. Ibu Sia, mohon maaf waktunya 1 menit lagi ya Ibu.
Ya. Dan slide ini juga merupakan slide terakhir dari saya. Saya juga mengajak semua orang bahwa bagaimanapun juga tantangan yang terberat memang berasal dari pemerintah dan masyarakat, tapi sebagai industri kita tidak boleh lelah. Mari kita sama-sama bergerak cepat dalam penyelamatan lingkungan ini. Tantangan akan selalu ada, dan sebagai manusia kita harus menemukan solusi, dan sebagai industri kita harus memberikan nilai tambah bagi masyarakat dan khususnya untuk Indonesia. Terima kasih atas perhatian Bapak dan Ibu. Salam Rahayu. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih banyak Ibu Lucia. Now we shall carry on to the last panelist. But before that, I would like to kindly remind all the participants to raise any questions you might have to our speakers on the chat box. Pertanyaannya juga bisa diajukan dalam bahasa Indonesia, nanti saya akan bantu terjemahkan. Now, we would like to cordially welcome Mr. Holger Appler, the CFO and acting CEO of PT Siemens Indonesia. Mr. Appler has more than 34 years of experience working for Siemens, and he began his career with Siemens AG in 1987. And since October 2021 until now, he has served as the director and acting CEO of PT Siemens Indonesia, as well as the director and CFO of PT Trafo Indo Power Indonesia. Prior to Indonesia, he also has served with Siemens in various countries, including Saudi Arabia, Thailand, and England. Now, without further ado, I would like to give the screen to Mr. Holger Appler. The screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. How many minutes do I have to be in the time?
Around 15, but
Okay.
yeah.
Sure. Okay, good. Then yeah, let's talk about the global challenges what we have in regards to carbonization and net zero emissions. If you can go to the slides. Okay, good. Then maybe we can go to the next one. And the next one, I think this one we have already. So so welcome everyone. Thank you for having me. What is the today's biggest challenge is, of course, what we are talking today about climate change. Yeah, and this requires really a transformative change. Yeah, so meaning to say every one of us has to take action, yeah, by reducing emissions, increase the share of renewable resources, electrify mobility, capture or store carbons emissions, and as well that we shift to zero emission alternatives. Yeah, and Siemens, for example, is one of the companies which has set itself a target to become zero emission by 2030. So we are already in the process of doing this change. And if you then maybe go to the next slide already. Oh, sorry, one back. Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay, it's delayed, yeah. So, and basically the question now is what we have to ask. So where do we come from and how exactly do we go there? Yeah, so, and we as a Siemens, as an industrial player, both not only in the industrial sector, but also in the energy sector. Yeah, we are listening really to all of our customers in the world, worldwide. We are active in more than 180 countries on this globe. Yeah, and we are really looking and listening to their pain points. Yeah, and we are then, including here Indonesia, really going and look into the market and find where is the points where we can take actions and where we can find solutions. If you go to the next page, please. Yeah, so, and that is basically the questions what all of our customers, including ourselves, really have to get an answer for. Yeah, and this goes from how do we get to zero emissions, for example, yeah? Who can we partner with? Yeah, what can we do in terms of financing? What is really helping us to achieve those goals? And where do we really go from a technology and digitalization provider? Where can we go and get the required help, what we need in order to make this transformative transition? Yeah, and here we as a technology focused company, we are really one which is really in all those areas where we see our customers need help. Yeah, in Siemens, if we go to the next slide, please. Yeah, what we are saying is we, Siemens, create technology to transform the everyday. Yeah, what does it really mean? We provide artificial intelligence experts, mechanical engineers across the electrification, automation, and digitalization chains. Yeah, so we can help to do predictive technology in order, for example, to, let's say, if you go for mobility, for trains, yeah, that we can really have the entire train digitalized, help to detect where is something happening, where might something happen in terms of predicting, in order to avoid any shortfalls and to make it more reliable and more more efficient. Yeah, our software engineers, for example, they are developing apps that helped us to return to work, for example, safely during this pandemic in our workplaces. So we have dedicated apps where we monitor our office buildings in order to find out how big is the population of our employees coming back to work, and so to streamline the proper flow so that we don't really have, from a distancing perspective, for example, that we really have people following the guidelines which are mandated also by the government in order to be really safe and come back to work. And this we also offer to our customers. And then the other topic is, of course, that we have electrical engineers and capabilities where we can help communities around the world, including Indonesia, to build local independent power grids, microgrids, which we can then also help to operate, to stabilize the power grid, and to be more efficient and more available and sustainable. Yeah, and this is something where we say as Siemens, we can help and transform the everyday for our customers and for the society. So what does it really mean? If you maybe go to the next one. No, sorry, one back. I have a little bit delay, seems like. No, back, if you go back to page 6. Yeah. So what does it really mean? We in Siemens, we want to combine the real world and the digital world. Yeah, so, and that is basically what we are good at. What you might not know, Siemens invested over the last 10 years around 10 billion euros in digital companies, and we are actually one of the top 10 software companies in the world. So with this know-how and with this knowledge, and across all those industrial and electrical markets, we really are in a position that we can combine the real and the real world and the digital world, so to make a gigantic leap for our customers in their industries and in their markets. And this digitalization will help all of us to achieve growth and prosperity while we use fewer resources. Yeah, so in short, it will help us to build a world which is with intelligent manufacturing, smart energy systems, smart buildings, and connected mobility, which will make all our lives healthier and more sustainable. And as you saw in one of my predecessors, speak from Pak Haryanto, especially the energy, smart buildings and mobility is really one of those areas where most of the energy consumption is happening. Yeah, and for us, digitalization is the answer to transform the everyday, create a better tomorrow. And an answer to the major issues of our age, such as climate change, globalization, demographic change, and urbanization. And as we all know, the global economy needs new solutions to grow sustainable. And this situation presents our company with major opportunities for sustainable growth, not only for ourselves, but also for our customers. Yeah, if you can go to the next page. Yeah, so, and we basically have a holistic approach. Yeah, so to speak, yeah, we are across what I said earlier. We are across all the infrastructure areas, verticals. Yeah, we are in industry. Yeah, we are in buildings. We are in grids, electrical grids. Yeah, be it transmission, be it distribution, and we are also active in the transportation area. Yeah, and Siemens, we want to harness all the opportunities, yeah, to get everything increasingly connected by devices, so that we have really the data in order to make the best out of our solutions and services to provide the best offering for the customers. And that is where Siemens creates technology with a purpose, and sustainability is in our core for all aspects of the business. Yeah, and what did Siemens do in order to make it really measurable? That was also one of the topics, I think, what one of my predecessors said. What Siemens introduced is what we call the degree framework. Yeah, so in the degree framework gives really a 360-degree view in regard of sustainability from all the angles what we see. Yeah, so that covers the areas of decarbonization, ethics, governance, resource efficiency, equity, and deployability. Yeah, and part of this, for example, is where I just had some meeting before that here is, for example, what we have is also an ESG tool here in Siemens, where we go really from a very early stage when we identify a business opportunity, where we really look into those type of aspects in terms of, is this something which is meeting the standards what we put ourselves into? Yeah, so meaning to say, do we have a business, let's say a project somewhere on our radar, on our view, where we really go into the topic? So what is it for? Where, in which what is it addressing? Which vertical in the market? Yeah, is it something which is coal related? Is it something which is going into mining? Yeah, what is the background for our product or for the service what we are asked to do for our customer? Is it meeting really certain requirements and standards where we aspire to, and where we are also responsible to give some explanation to our shareholders? Yeah, and if you go, for example, for this decarbonization topic, yeah, so that is something where we look at the reduction of emissions along our entire value chain, yeah, in order to maintain and stay within this 1.5 degree threshold. Yeah, and that is not only that we aim to be carbon neutral in our own operations by 2030, what I said earlier, but we're also extending this into the entire supply chain, for example, logistics. Yeah, so we are really going and we are rolling out tools where we are really measuring the improvement and basically the status quo and improvement across the entire supply chain and logistic chain. Yeah, so that you can only achieve, yeah, and can only achieve the biggest impact if we do it together with our customers, yeah, during their operations, but also in our supplier side. Yeah, and we are proud to offer solutions for decarbonization in, let's say, performance energy contracting for buildings, for example, or for manufacturing sites. Yeah, for ethics, for example, we are committed to foster a culture of trust. Yeah, our values and ethical standards for doing business are anchored for more than a decade already in our business conduct guidelines. Yeah, where we train all of our people, all of our staff, everybody who joins new regularly. Yeah, so at least every 3 years we roll out this. We have a very strong compliance organization. Yeah, and top management priority is really compliance. Yeah, and it's part of our personal incentives. Yeah, that we are maintaining a certain level. Yeah, so that is really measured every year in order to be on the top level and have it as a top priority. Yeah, and we are also recognized in the industry as one of the leaders in cybersecurity. Siemens is part of, or we are co-founded of a Charter of Trust initiative, yeah, which was rolled out globally with cross-industry partners. And the aim of this Charter of Trust is to protect data and drive cybersecurity in a trusted digital world. Yeah, and we are also, of course, committed to the UN Global Compact and the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. And further, of course, we have hardwired it in our strong governance model, yeah, and here in Siemens to reduce business risks, what I said earlier, yeah, and also to secure our license to operate globally and locally. So good governance is built into our state-of-the-art management system, in our incentive system. And this is also what we are going to stretch out and extend to our supplier base. Yeah, if you can go to, where are we? Slide 10. Can we go to slide 10? Yeah. Sorry, it's coming a little bit late. So our Siemens decarbonization program, that's what I said earlier. So our own decarbonization program, we started in 2014, sorry. Yeah, in Siemens, we were one of the first to commit to carbon neutrality. So in our last fiscal year, 2020, yeah, we already halved our carbon footprint in our own operations from the baseline, which we set from 2014. And our aim is now to do the second step, so to speak, until 2030. Yeah, and we have achieved this carbon reduction through a series of ongoing activities. And here I have to say every little thing counts. Yeah, so we have an energy efficient program. We are looking into our own car fleet, for example. We are looking at distributed energy systems in our locations and let's say manufacturing places, and also, of course, for green electricity. Yeah, so here in Indonesia, for example, we did, like I said, everything little counts. Yeah, for example, we switched to LED, for example. Yeah, we revisited our, let's say, for some of our assembly areas, we revisited our air conditioning, yeah, and we switched it over to something less energy consumption. Yeah, and we are also going now really to look going forward into, for example, solar. Yeah, and if this is a workable solution, then we will also go for solar in the next couple of years. So all with the target really to be carbon neutral by 2030. If we can go to the next. Yeah, if we go to the, let's say, resource efficiency topic, that is something where we really go also into the advancement of recycling and circularity. Yeah, and with our eco-efficiency program, yeah, we focus on the impact factor, input factors of sustainability, and we have a set standard in designing eco-compatible products. Yeah, for example, our latest internal innovation is the Green Digital Twin that offers a sustainable option for every component or part in the design phase of a product. So, and by 2030, 100% of all relevant product families will be covered by a robust eco-design approach. We will also focus on, for example, decoupling resources, natural resources, through increased purchasing of secondary materials for metals and resins. And lastly, we are reducing our waste to landfill. And the ultimate goal also here to be zero by 2030. For employability, it is something, of course, we are in a permanently changing environment, and it's crucial that we really remain resilient and relevant as a business and as individuals. And if we want to be successful over a long and fulfilling life and career. And digitalization has now really shown that it's a disrupting, yeah, how we work and the type of work we do. And that's where we really go and continuously invest in our employees' reskilling and also upskilling. Yeah, so and that is something what we really drove now, and the pandemic has showed it, and it can be accelerated, and we did it really well, I think, that we really drove this up in reskilling also from a virtual perspective. Yeah, and equity, just to pick on the last word of this slides, that is really meant to state that we highlight equitable treatment. Yeah, and we respect that form the core of our value system. So we foster diversity in the company, inclusion and community development to provide a sense of belonging for all of our people. So, and for example, 30% of the top management is our target that we will have to have female by 2025. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so and this basically just shows, let's say, our strong track record in terms of sustainability. Yeah, so and we are accelerating, like I said, our sustainability approach by embedding it in our business activities and make it part of our portfolio, our operations, our governance. And all of this is now in our DNA in Siemens. In Siemens, the technology and innovation create opportunities, and it helps our customers to achieve also their sustainability goals for a better future. And we are committing to, and we also do report this progress, yeah, with clear ESG priorities and ambitions in keeping in line with our degree framework. And as I said earlier, this degree framework is being also part of it, or is being made part of our personal incentives. So reflects in our compensation at the end of the day. Yeah, and if you can go to the next page, just to give maybe some examples. Yes. So we have, for example, one area where we are as Siemens active is, for example, wind farms. Yeah, so here the Tolo wind farm. Yeah, and the Tolo wind farm is basically one aspect, of course, of decarbonization. Yeah, and Siemens was, let's say, not only doing the windmills itself, yeah, which was done by our sister company, Siemens Renewables Gamesa, but we also did here from Indonesia, we did provide and start to, let's say, deliver for the wind park, the electrical components, yeah, so everything, grid connection, etc., for the wind turbines, including the, let's say, the SCADA systems, etc., in Sulawesi, we did here from Siemens in Indonesia. Yeah, maybe let's go to the next slide. Maybe a more recent development is here for Inalum, yeah, where we're looking at resource efficiency. So, and here for this project, we provide real-time monitoring of the plant conditions, yeah, to help Inalum to better manage and optimize their power transmission and generation from the hydropower plant, yeah, to their smelter site. And we are helping them to boost their grid efficiency in order to be more efficient and more sustainable. Sorry, now my computer is stuck. Sorry for that. Can you still see me or hear me?
I beg your pardon?
So can you still see or hear me because my computer is frozen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. We can see your presentation.
So, okay, so basically what is Siemens recommendations or yeah, kind of wish list, if you like, yeah. So I think both the government and BKPM have done a really remarkable job to encourage and facilitate investments with the licensing and business-related tax incentives. So I think this is something we should really keep going, keep the momentum. Yeah, and also to identify future priorities, to facilitate strategic dialogues, yeah, between the government and the private sector. Something like this is really, I think, helpful. And also we really need to accelerate public-private partnerships, implement appropriate business incentives, including financing models, rationalization of products and business licenses, and further focus on the environment. Yeah, and of course, this all we want to have by being inclusive, integrative, and create a sustainable and also measurable impact for the customers and also for the society in the end. Yeah, and then I think I would be through with my presentation. I hope I was in time.
No, you were right on time. Danke schön, Herr Appler. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we shall proceed to the Q&A session. But before that, allow me to notify the participants that unfortunately Pak Karyanto had to leave earlier because he had another meeting. But we are still delighted that we still have Ibu Lucia as well as Mr. Hoger here with us to address some of the questions you might have.